All right. Here we are on our webinar for today. We're just letting people in. We're going to give it a minute while everybody starts to enter into the webinar. But why don't you jump in, help us check our technology, jump into the chat, tell us where you're viewing from, and let us know if the audio's good. David, give it a little audio check there.
Hopefully everybody can hear, right?
So
I'm sure people will let us know if they can.
Yeah,
so,
right.
yeah.
So
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be fun. This is with post COVID, you don't get people in the office very often to do live,
right?
Conversations and webinars. So this is pretty exciting. So
yeah, it worked out good to be able to do this together and to be in your office, and grateful to be out here. You know, I was telling you earlier, like just to look outside the window and see the mountains. Here it's beautiful. So great to be here.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, we're just south of Salt Lake City. So do some skiing and although snow has been pretty disappointing this year so far.
Well, I mean, coming from the East Coast, I'm gonna ski this weekend. It'll be way better than anything that we can get access to. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. So all right, people are coming in. We get a thumbs up from the back. All right, welcome everybody to our special episode here, this webinar. We've been looking forward to this for some time because we've been collaborating together on the data and what's going on. And really, I think we uncovered what is the greatest opportunity, at least in the last decade.
No doubt.
Which is coming up in here, January of 2025. And we're going to talk about that. But special guest here with us today is David Childers, CEO of Keeping Current Matters. If people don't know what Keeping Current Matters is, they maybe ought to look at that before their next CE credits, because as long as I've known KCM or Keeping Current Matters, I've asked my employees to read your daily blog. And I make this promise to them, and this isn't meant to offend agents, but if they would read your blog every day for 30 days, that they would know more than 90% of the real estate agents out there.
Yeah, I tell that to new agents. So a new agent will come up if we're at an event or something like that and say, how can I get up to speed on the market? And I'm like, listen, follow KCM and just listen to what we do. I'm biased, obviously, but you'll be more educated than most of the agents, and certainly more than the people you sit down in front of. You know what I mean? That want to buy or sell.
Well, and I remember the first time I met Steve Harney, the founder, and Steve was on stage, and he, he always talked about this, that he just wanted to help people, and he talked about how we have to be experts in the marketplace if we truly want to serve and help people, and that resonated with me. That was like in 2007, probably, that I met Steve, and so we've been following Keeping Current Matters for a long time. David Childers is out on the road all the time on stage, sharing what you know to help people become experts and professionals and to understand what's going on in the marketplace, and also to give the right lens for our industry and what's going on. So very excited. Anything to add to your introduction? Why don't you just maybe anything you want to add to you or Keeping Current Matters?
Well, I mean, listen, I think I tell people all the time, people don't show up to hear David. They show up to hear KCM and all the information that our amazing team produces. We've got a team in Richmond, Virginia, that our sort of heartbeat is to say, okay, what's happening in the market? You know, if we were in our office today, we've got a wall that says we believe every family should feel confident when buying and selling a home, whether buying or selling a home. And that's what drives the work that we do, is can we give the agent the confidence to say, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to prices or, sales or days on market, or all the things that hit our business. And that's why we exist. And we exist really in this moment, I believe, right now more than ever, with the thought that knowledge about our business is power. If you're knowledgeable about what's happening right now, then you can guide people forward. And if you can educate them and give them that information, you don't have to convince anybody to do anything, right? Even what we're going to talk about in expireds today, if you have a listing that's going to expire, or if you're talking to an expired listing, you can give them the facts, and then they can make the best decision for them and their family. That's why we exist in the work that we do every day.
That's awesome. Well, look, you came with some incredible information about 2024, about 2025, and of course, the greatest opportunity to hit in 2025. So why don't we jump in
Okay.
and that's what the people are here for, right?
Yeah, for sure. So let's do it that way. And like we were talking about before, interrupt me anytime as we're
Great.
talking about something. And I want to sort of back up and maybe set this up in just a minute. I'll bring some slides up. But Curtis, even as we're talking about this opportunity, I do believe expireds and what we're talking about today will be the biggest opportunity in the next 30, 45 days, and even longer.
Yep.
But I think that what we're seeing in the market right now points directly to this. But this started back over the summer when I was going to Miami.
Yes.
And I called you and I'm like, hey, can you pull some information for me in Miami? And at that moment, and still even right now, the condo market in Miami's a little bit challenging, and there were some issues. We were talking about price. And so you gave me all this great information. I went to Miami and delivered it, and people were like, this is amazing. And then we were on the phone, just several weeks ago talking about the expireds piece and what you and your team came up with. When we saw it, we were like, this is unbelievable.
Right.
This is unbelievable. So I want to say this, and I don't know how many people on the webinar are REDX, sort of members, customers, but if you're not right now, I just want you to listen and strongly consider if this is a pillar or a lead source of expireds that you want to go after, even FSBOs, that you consider that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be, if it is something you want to consider, you have to be with REDX.
Right.
If you're like, I don't know if I'm going to do this, I hear you, right? Go on your way, and that's completely okay. So we're going to go through that in a minute. But what I brought today are a couple of things. One, a question that's sort of been forming about this market, and the question is sort of, is this going to be the lowest year for transactions? And I'm going to cover that, and I'll give you the facts. That way, anybody listening, over the next week and kind of wrapping up the year, we'll probably see more people at parties and gatherings and things like that. These things will come up, I'll guarantee you. I'm going to give you everything that we have for the 2025 forecast. And I'll even tell a little story. I've had a chance over the last several weeks to present this to masterminds of agents, really CEOs and chairmen of companies in gatherings about what do we see happening in the 2025 real estate market. And by the way, nobody's got a crystal ball. And let me just tell you that. But I can tell you what people are pointing to, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we do at Keeping Current Matters, is start to synthesize and say, okay, what is everybody saying? I saw a forecast the other day for mortgage rates, and they said somewhere between 5.5 and 7.5. And I'm like, yeah, right. Yes. I'll give you a little bit more concrete answer than that.
Right.
But no doubt that was a wide range. And then we're going to hit all of this expired stuff.
Right.
And kind of walk through the story. And that's really where I want you to kind of say, hey, I want to add to this. Here's how you use this information, which is huge. So does that sound like a good kind of plan? And I know the chat's open. I know we have people from our team that are on there. I think Sarah's in there, and if there are questions or things, we'll get those answered. And if you have questions about what we're talking about, I know you've got that right there. I'll take any question that anybody can ask, as long as I reserve the right to say I don't know. Okay, so that's the one thing I'm going to ask for. Okay, all right, let's pull that slide up, because I want to talk a little bit about this question. I've got a little clicker here and slides up, and this question of the 2024 market and sort of defining reality, right? Doug Duckin said this: we expect affordability to remain the primary constraint of housing activity for the foreseeable future. And we now think full year 2024 will produce the fewest existing home sales since 1995. Okay, so I come here to say, Steve used to always say, and you were good friends with Steve, and for those of you, I think most people know Steve passed away this spring, and the Keeping Current, his legacy will live on through Keeping Current Matters. But he used to always say this. He would always say, David, there's not good news or bad news. There's just the news.
Right. And
Steve was brilliant at delivering that and articulating it. But this is not good news. It's not bad news. It's just the news, right?
Yeah.
There are agents this year that are going to say, I'm going to have the best year ever. And there are agents that are going to say, I'm struggling.
Yeah. It's an uncontrollable.
Completely. Yeah. But if you want to kind of dig into this, let's take a look. This is existing home sales, and I told you eyes wise, I can't see what that far number year is. Maybe you can see it there. I think it's maybe early 90s. A look at existing home sales, and 2024, when you consider population growth, will end up being the lowest number of existing home sales ever. Okay. Now here's how you make that calculation. And again, I want to give you this so that you have the facts when you're having a conversation with somebody. So here's how it breaks down. This year there will be one home sold for every 85 people in the US based on current run rate. All right. Other notable years you see in there, 95, the one we just referenced, one sale for every 70. 08, certainly a challenging year in our business, one sale for every 74. 2023, one sale for every 82.
Wow.
Okay, so last year.
Right.
So I just say this, and I was even with our team last week, and we were looking at, imagine looking at a graph, of a line graph of all these years of existing home sales, 23 and 24 at the bottom, right?
Right.
So that's defining reality, right? There's Max Dupree wrote a book. What was it? The leadership book he wrote. I can't remember. Leadership is an Art is the name of the book. In the first line in that book said the leader's job is to define reality, right? So if you're a leader in the business right now, that's reality,
Right.
right? I can't sugarcoat it. I can't go, hey, Curtis, don't look over there. That is reality. And in this, the heart of the slowdown is affordability, right? We started there, and it's going to remain a challenge for buyers and sellers alike. So you can pull down those slides for a second, but that is the reality of where we sit in the business right now. Now, if you can define reality, then you can start to look forward,
right,
and say, what's 25 going to bring?
We talk a lot about GPS. If you want to plot a path to somewhere, you have to have a really good idea of where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the sit rep, right? We're looking at what is going on in the market so that we can start to plan. Okay, well, what do I do in my business? How do I adapt? How do I change things to move forward? So
yeah. And what's going to be my plan? Now, I'll tell you something that's interesting relative to this. And I talked about acknowledging reality. Simon Sinek, he wrote the book Start With Why. Probably most people, on here today heard of Simon.
Yeah.
He also, you can Google this and find it. He recorded a video. It's probably 2 or 3 minutes long, and it's called The Difference Between Blind Positivity and Being the Optimistic Leader.
Right.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
So in this video, he kind of breaks down, and he makes this analogy. He said, blind positivity is I stick my head in the ground and I'm like, none of this is happening.
Right.
And there's some blind positivity in our business, right? We kind of get up and we're like, okay, I'm going to make it today. I'm going to ignore everything. Don't look over there. But being an optimistic leader means I believe there are better days ahead.
Yeah.
And I believe that to my core. Yeah. I believe what's over the mountain, the classic definition of faith is evidence of things not seen.
Right.
Right. So I believe what's around the corner, what's over the hilltop that I can't see is there.
Right.
Now that's where I want to sort of transition and go, why can I be an optimistic leader right now?
Yeah.
It's because of what I start to read. And if you bring the slides back up, take a look at this. Realtor.com said the 2024 housing market broke free from the clutches of tight for sale inventory, and we expect that trend to continue in 2025. A forecasted increase of inventory of 11.7%, let's call it 12%, is compared to 24. So first thing that I want to say is there's a forecast for inventory to grow next year.
Supply's going up.
That is a good thing in our business, right? We've been undersupplied for so long in housing. And I think really what we're talking about is heading back to a more balanced market. I don't see a pure seller's market or a pure buyer's market, but a more sellers even market. Okay. And so I think that's important to remember. And that's a good thing for anybody looking to buy a home. There will be more options for them. Remember when people abandoned their search a couple of years ago when they couldn't find a home? And here's what this looks like. Over the last several years, 2019 and years prior, inventory was falling in this country. And we know that, right? We know the story of that. And so when you look at 24 and even going into 25, projected inventory growth. Okay. So when you have more inventory into the market, there are more things to sell, right? You know, one of the biggest issues in some of the previous years is we couldn't sell what we didn't have in inventory. So if you start to look at that for next year, total home sales are forecasted to grow.
And just so people don't miss that last slide, that was year over year projected growth.
Correct.
So that's
Yeah, yeah.
12% on top of kind of the
Yeah.
inventory growth that we've had
Yeah.
in 2024,
Yeah.
which means we're getting to, just like you said, a much healthier balance.
It's a healthier
supply.
market. And if I have a seller right now that's thinking, do I want to sell? I'm talking to them about, guess what? Inventory is going to grow. If you want to sell, now is the time. I believe that. I believe there are opportunities that you can find inside of these sort of these numbers, but total home sales forecast, this is new and existing homes projected for 25, call it right at 5 million.
Yep.
End up this year somewhere around 4.6 million. We generally, you know, sell about 700,000 new homes in this country a year, and we'll end up somewhere in the high threes in existing home sales likely. Yep. So I don't see anybody right now, Curtis, going, we're going to blow the doors off, and you see the market peak there in 21. But I do see a pretty consistent signal that 24 this year will likely be the bottom of the trough in this cyclical market.
Yep.
Okay. So let's all agree that's a good thing, right? We want that. Okay. What's going to drive more home sales? Well, these are mortgage rate projections coming from Fannie, from MBA, from Wells, and they have us by the end of the year getting somewhere around 6.3%. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. If you look at that graphically, that's what this looks like, right? Yep. Not anything dramatic in mortgage rates falling, but affordability will be helped by that, right? There are three things that affordability is based on: the rate someone pays on a mortgage, the price of the home, and wages. Are wages growing, or what's happening there? Now, if you follow Keeping Current Matters, we've talked about that extensively in the outlook for affordability. It's challenging now, but I do believe it will get better in the coming years. But let me say this about mortgage rates. Even in the last 24, 48 hours, Fed's meeting and what's going to happen, and this is a volatile market right now. We're seeing swings in rates that happen in 24 hours that a normalized market would happen in 6 months. Okay, so you just have to realize where we're at. And a lot of these projections are being made in the dead of winter right now.
Right.
And I will say this, I'm like, sometimes like, should I say this? Your outlook on the economy is largely tied to your political outlook too.
Right.
Some people are like, oh, we're heading in the right direction. Some people are like, we're not.
Right.
That is the reality of the world that we live in. Now, I think there's, you know, all of us have different biases obviously in our lives and what we think. And I'm not saying politics and all that's not important. It's hugely important. But when you start to look at things and look at why we are in the mortgage rate scenario that we're in, I don't see anybody on rates going, hey, we're going to blow the doors off. We're going to be in the fives.
Right.
I see somewhere in the low sixes, maybe if we get lucky, you know, dipping our toe in the fives. But I think we'll be in a better scenario towards the end of the year than we are right now.
Well, even if you look at this chart, what I like to look at, because we think, especially where the conversation is going to properties that come off the market, and if you just look at those trend lines and you look at where it was when it comes off the market and where it was when it was listed, there's a completely different buyer pool at different times when a property is listed. And so looking forward to that and the buyers and what's going on, there's always an opportunity when you're talking to a seller to say, this is why now is a really good time, right? Especially as the trend line for interest rates is going down. Yeah,
for sure. And I do believe on the front half of this year, for buyers, there will be an opportunity, right? Because a lot of people are going to go, hey, we're going to kind of wait. You know, there's an interesting statistic in the last year. This came from Bright MLS, one of the largest MLS on the East Coast, that 70% of buyers abandon their search because of price, right? And that's not anything that I think most folks listening don't go, okay, that makes sense. I understand that. And I have a buyer too that did that.
I can't get what I want for the money I have.
There is a buy opportunity forming in real estate right now. Now, you know, most people are like, all right, well, that's challenging, right? All that, but there is an opportunity. Oh, by the way, prices are forecasted to rise at a very normal and what I'm going to call historically healthy rate. These are all the forecasters that we watch, an average of about 3% in residential real estate in this country this year. So I don't know if we have any.
Buyers are looking at that last one going, that's who I follow.
Oh
Like
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any questions on Slack there. But if you do have questions about 24, 25, we certainly can ask those or take those. I want to pause for a second while you check that, Curtis. And if you're out there listening and you have a question, put it in there because I kind of want to hear it. But here's the question that I have for everybody listening. Here is the question. And it's this question right here. What do you believe about the year ahead? Right? If we define where the year has been, if we define where we've been in 24, what do we believe about 25? I've just given you what forecasters are saying, and you don't have to agree with me. I would say that everywhere you talked about getting a chance to share the KCM message, and I'm grateful for all the opportunity I get to share that message. But here's what I always tell people. What I believe you have to have in this market is a relevant opinion based upon facts. So you could say, David, I don't think my market's going to shape up that way. Okay. Tell me why. What are the facts? That's how I believe you interact with somebody in today's world, right? Hey, national forecast or that prices are going to rise, but I believe where we're at, we're going to see a little bit more appreciation, or we're not going to see as much appreciation, or we're going to see plateauing or depreciation in price. There will be markets. We talked about Miami that will see depreciation in price. Now, oh, by the way, in the last 5 years, they've seen about 75% appreciation.
Right.
They might give back 5% or 10%. But nobody, I don't see anybody reputable, let me throw that in there, calling for this apocalyptic scenario in real estate.
Recession
in the next year or so.
Yeah. All right, we do have a good question here.
Slides down if you want.
Have there been any significant change in the way that buyers and sellers look to buy or sell homes, or the way they engage with the listings? So as markets go up and down, does that change the buyer behavior, if I'm reading that correctly?
And with respect to how they're looking for a home?
Yeah.
What would online and all those things, or what do you?
I'm just reading the question. So if I were to speculate on the question a little bit, I would say,
show those.
I think my answer would be yes. Every change in the marketplace shifts the way people look at buying and selling their home. I think that's just natural. I think that there was massive changes because it was an election year. And so you've got, just like you said, there's people waiting, there's people pausing, there's the doomsdayers and those that are saying, oh, we're saved. All of that plays into the fact that, how they're going to go and shop and think about their future.
Oh, okay. So I get the question. I appreciate you setting it up that way. So I think, first of all, here we sit wrapping up the year. We've just gone through a presidential election. The Fed's trying to say, is economically, are we going to make it? You got unemployment, you got inflation, we have all these things bearing down, and there are questions about next year. That is for sure. So buyers, what do most buyers think? One, we did this study at KCM that shows that buyer activity slows down the month of November in an election year, what we just come out of. They sort of put their hands in their pocket and they're like, well, wait, right? Yeah. Which makes sense. I don't think anybody came out of that election going, okay, yeah, well, let's get back to normal, right? Somebody asked me one day, they were like, how long do you think it's going to take for people to stop talking about the election? It's like, how long did it take last time? It took about 4 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how long you got. But I think people are still very reticent of like, should I move forward? So I think that's true in the market. That's why you have to bring this information. Second thing, there are two categories of buyers that I think you have to sort of understand. One is the first-time home buyer, which struggles with affordability in this country. So I think looking at a buddy of mine named Rob Crane about, gosh, it was 15 years ago, he started a business called downpaymentresource.com. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Downpaymentresource.com. If you're listening, write that down. They aggregate every program by county and by city that provide resources, grants, all of those things for buying a home. Phenomenal resource. There's alternative financing options, right? A 2-1 buy down, maybe an adjustable rate more, all the things that you can get. So I think buying is possible, but I think you have to look at what,
Right.
you know, what the options are. So that's the first time home buyer that's saddled with, you know, affordability challenges. I think that will continue, but I do think there are ways around it. Then you have the existing homeowner that's the buyer that says, why would I? Why would I pay more and likely get less? I was in New York a few weeks ago at a data conference, and this term is going to start coming up a lot more in the psychology of why someone moves. It's the term and the concept of switching cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the switching cost of buying a home is normal in every market, right? That is, I got to pull the kids out of school. I got to shut down the utilities. I got to do all the things I don't want to do. But I believe moving into this house, whether it's larger in a better neighborhood or whatever it is, downsizing even, or moving closer to family, whatever your motivation is, that outweighs it, right? If I have a switching cost that I believe is less than what I gain, I'm good to go. Well, what's been the biggest challenge over the last couple of years? The switching cost relative to the financial aspect of it has been the challenge, right?
Right.
Why would I? Right. And if we're honest in our business, we have to go, that's a very good question. Now, I think I did a recording with our friend Jimmy Burgess on this, and he positioned using real numbers in a scenario to take why would I to why wouldn't I? And I think you're going to see more people that have been on the sidelines with either that need to downsize, that, you know, are moving up, or whatever the case is, that have not made a decision start to make that decision in 24
Right.
and 25. So I think it's all about using real numbers for buyers today. Most buyers that are existing homeowners, oh, by the way, too, are sitting on more equity than they've ever had in their homes.
Right.
You know, I've talked about this extensively. And this is another, just an interesting fact. I'm sorry if I'm going off the rails here. In this country right now, there's $35 trillion in mortgage debt. There's 17 trillion in consumer debt. So mortgage makes up the majority of consumer debt, and it's higher than it's ever been. And sort of, if people aren't paying attention, most of the, you know, negative news on that is like, that doesn't sound good, right? Consumer debt's at an all-time high. That is true. Well, the 13 trillion in mortgage debt is supported by over $35 trillion in equity.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more equity in homes.
Yeah. 13 trillion in debt, 35 trillion
over
in
35.
Equity.
Yeah. I'd have to pull the number exactly in equity.
Yeah.
Now, listen, here's the interesting thing. So I've got a graphic that shows basically from 2000 to today, where's debt been in mortgages, where's equity been. In 08, there was more debt in this country than there was equity. Those lines crossed. It's very clear. And if you look today, and it's one of the things that came out of, listen, I'll speak personally on that. Any hardship that I've ever gone in life, I've gone, I don't want to do that again. Right. Unfortunately, that's how I learned.
Right.
You know, it's how most of us learn. And people came out of 2008 and they said, we're going to do it differently. So I think buyers have more cards to play there. Any other questions come through?
There is one, and I'll read it just so people can, you know, tease people a little bit. It's what implications do the new TCPA changes have on REDX customers? So
you want to hit this at the end?
No. We'll talk about that at the end.
Couple
because
people are interested.
Yeah, very interested. We all should be. You know, it's new laws that affect our business, so we are going to address that in a little bit.
All right. So how are we doing on time? What time is it?
11:30.
All right. So I think we're doing all right. So let's talk for just a minute, Curtis, on the expired piece. So I can get what I want to try to do is take everything that you gave me and sort of tell the story around it, right? And give, you know, folks on the call some good visuals to have printed out or have with you when you sit down with somebody. Now we're going to give all of these to you. Okay, I'll show you a place to get them. You can
Yep.
send them to people.
Yep.
You know, if you want these slides, we want you to have them. But do you want to take just a minute and kind of set up how your team grabbed this information, what you're sort of looking for, and then I'll kind of take the story of what we did with all of that. Does that sound good?
Yeah. So we do a lot of data here, and we have a data team with data scientists and analysts on there that we're always looking at data, and we know that there's always a huge amount of properties that come off the market starting in January. And so we just started to say, well, what does that look like? What did it look like in 2024? What is it going to look like in 2025 based on some of these prediction numbers? And then we started to dig deeper into that, you know, especially as we started having conversations and asking more questions of why is that, and what's going on there? What does that mean? And again, this is where we've been talking. I think we uncovered you know, the details about this huge opportunity that's about to happen. So
yeah, I agree. And so what I would do is, I want to give all of this to you. And if you can bring those slides up, I want to kind of take a step back and go, okay, why do we see this starting to form in the market? And again, I'm not going to say anything here that probably everybody listening does not already know. But what I want to do is remind you of a couple of things and give you some really good visuals to communicate that. You know the old saying, picture's worth 1,000 words. I can tell you something all day long, but if I can show you, then you go, okay, that makes sense. So first piece here, days on market has slowly risen. If we look at median days on market in November of each year, going back to 21, days on market is growing. We know that. There's not a person probably on the call that goes, that's true in my market, right? Maybe there's one person like, that's not true. Well, that's awesome, right? But most people are like, that's days on market is growing. Inventory is slowly growing. Remember the day, Curtis, when we were like, hey, I wish things wouldn't sell so fast and we had more inventory?
Yeah.
Guess what? We're here.
Yeah.
That's the good news of it, right? So days is taking longer to sell a home. Inventory is the analogy I like to give on this is inventory is pooling in the market, right? Things aren't selling as quickly. And so we're seeing those listings hang around a little bit longer. And oh, by the way, existing home sales are down. Let's look back to 21. That drop right there is the result of the fastest rise in 30-year fixed mortgage rate in recorded history.
Right.
Okay. So rates shoot up. People were like, we can't do it anymore. Right. All of this right here points to expired listings, days on market rising, inventory rising, and sales falling. So we started talking and you took your team and kind of said, hey, let's sort of do a little bit of work and see how this plays out. And so the work that Curtis and the REDX team did is phenomenal. I mean, I have probably with this information, I don't know how many thousands of agents I've gotten a chance to share this with over the last 10 days. But it's been a lot. And I do believe it is the strategy for kicking off 2025.
Yes.
It is the strategy. If somebody else has got the other one, I'm like, speak up now. Right. You know what I mean? This is the one. So what is this sort of based upon? Well, in the first week of this year of 2024, there are about 129,000 listings that were expired, canceled, or withdrawn in this country. And then you see the two blue bars that are sort of the low side and high side expectations of what we believe will come as expires the first week of 2025, just in a couple weeks.
Right.
Okay. Why do we believe that? And Curtis, you can probably speak to this too. The trajectory of expired listings is growing. Right. And so as you start to see that trajectory, we can kind of go, okay, that's what this starts to look like. And I'm going to say this, you can go, no, David, you're wrong. I think the first week of January, we will see more expired listings in this country than we've maybe seen in a decade.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah,
it's going to be pretty close.
So maybe it ties with another year. I don't have all those numbers committed to memory, but certainly in the last 5 years, I would say.
Oh,
you know what I mean. But see a tremendous amount of expired listings coming to market. The sales volume of those listings, somewhere between 12 and a half and I'm going to call it $14 billion.
$14 billion.
So if anybody's interested in this, now's the time to listen up. Okay. That is the crux of this.
Right.
Now, I think there's something I want to say. I'm going to hold off and say it. There were two things that I'll kind of come around to. One thing that you told me, and I don't want you to tell anybody on here. I want people in the chat to, as they're listening, to answer this. When you and your team distilled all the calls down, the number one emotion that a seller feels when their listing expires.
Yep.
I want you to tell people that when we wrap. And I want, in the meantime, I want people in the chat, just give us what you think that emotion is. Okay. But it shocked me when I heard that.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that at the end. So don't let me forget. Let's do that. So all this, we have all this data. If I have the data, if I do believe that knowledge is power, then I can then act upon it. Okay. So what's
just, if you go back one slide here, to me, I'm a natural skeptic.
Okay.
So I'm going to speak to my people for a second. And why I love data so much. Okay. And is because we can verify some of these numbers in multiple ways, but the best one is just to look historically at the first week in January, which is what that 12 billion. And we can look back and we can say, what are all the homes that canceled or expired or withdrew in the first week of January, and then we can just look to see who relisted and which ones sold and at what price. So the far left are real numbers. Then when we look forward, we have a couple of different predictive models that predict the amount of people that will come off the market. But if you just look at this number, we're predicting between 5 and 15% increase in off market. But that also makes sense. I can check that against we're 15 to 19% up in inventory.
Right.
So you can look at this and go, wow, $14 billion in sales. Those are real numbers. There was $12 billion in sales volume from the first week of January of those properties that went off the market, then relisted and sold.
Right. I mean, Curtis, this is phenomenal information. I mean, to have your team kind of studying this, and oh, by the way, everybody watching right now is the beneficiary of that.
Right.
And anybody you sit down with, and I would say this, I'd say, I study this, right? I've got REDX in my back pocket, and here's what I found. But if we kind of take that line of thinking, I want to back up for a second, because I'm going to then break down all the sales piece of it. At that point, the seller has 4 options. They can relist with their current agent, relist with a new agent. That's expired's business, right? Yep. They can take the house off the market, and plenty of people do that. And, they sort of have this feeling, I think a lot of times, of like, we're just done for a little while, right? I'm sort of over this process or whatever I feel like, and we'll wait, right? We'll wait till the spring. We'll wait till whatever. But that's an option. Or they FSBO, right? Those are the 4 options you have to understand. And I want to say this too. The reason this data is so important is if you have a relationship with someone, it's harder to, have a hard conversation with them, right? We see that in interpersonal relationship. Curtis is my friend, and I feel sort of this about a particular thing, but I'm not going to I'm not going to bring it to Curtis, because I don't want to offend him. I don't want to cause a rift in our relationship. I don't want to do any of that. And I think it's well intended, right? We could trace that back to marriage, relationships, whatever it is, right? We naturally a lot of times avoid conflict in that. Well, guess what? If you do that, there's somebody standing behind you ready to have that conversation who has nothing to lose. Right? Of why they believe the home didn't sell, what they believe could be done to sell the home, and tap into the reason that they put the house on the market in the first place. That dynamic, if we don't understand that right now, I mean, it is alive and well, And so if you think about that, what I want to do is I want to focus on these 2 right here is really the crux of this data: relisting with a current agent or relisting with a new agent. Depending on where you sit today, I think you're thinking about this. If you have a listing that's ready to expire, no doubt there are those that are on the call, or you're thinking about, I'm about to burn the phones up and reach out to these listings. There are a couple of things that I'll wrap up with that I think are really important about how, how you interact with people that are in this spot. And a lot of it will come down to, one of the things that I always think about in any scenario in life is meeting somewhere where they're at,
Yeah.
someone where they're at. Right. And so if I can understand their emotion, which you're going to give
Yeah.
us that, then I can meet them where they're at, and I can try to help them. Right. Most people in our business got in the business because they wanted to see people achieve the dream of home ownership, be able to help them buy or sell a home. Right. And so I think we have a chance to do that. But this data, Curtis, as you went through it from January 1 to January 7th, this year, 129,686 listings expired, were canceled, or withdrawn in this country.
Yep.
Okay. Of those homes, about half have been relisted so far this year.
Yep.
So let's call it kind of 50-50 right there.
Yep.
I'll tell you the question that I've gotten, and I didn't pre-plan this with you, is length of time. Like, when did they relist? Did the majority relist in a month or two? It'd be fascinating.
I have that. Do you want to get into? Yeah. So and it's really interesting because it is very different for the properties that expire at the first or come off the market at the first of the year than the rest of the average of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
So the average, well, and this plays into the opportunity because the opportunity spreads pretty much throughout the entire first quarter. So the average time it takes is 80 days.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Now the median is way less because you have few people that wait 6 months, right? But if you look at the average was 80 days for the listings that came off the market.
What's
in the
first
median?
week? Just what do ballpark?
I don't know.
30, 45 in that ball. In that
it was closer to 45, I think, but
fair enough.
Let's fact check if somebody can get Brigham, fact check that for me.
Yeah. So we know half relist, half don't. Sounds like the median relist in a month and a half, 2 months, right? That seems very, very reasonable.
And I would add that this is conservative as we apply this to January 2025 for all the reasons that we just talked about, why 2025 is going to be a great year. Interest rates are different. Things are, we're not in an election year anymore. So I think as we look, my, point of view, as I'm looking at things, I think that relisted number is going to be a much higher percentage, because when you look at the numbers for the second half of 2024, it's a much higher relisted number than it was from January of 2024.
Yeah.
So just know that we're being conservative as we put these percentages towards all of our 2025 predictions.
Yeah.
I think it's conservative.
Yeah. So we have these expired, and again, kind of going back to the story of this, if we can tell what happened in 2024, then we can say, what do we believe will happen? Well, what else happened? About 1 in 3 relisted with a different agent. I'm going to call this a new agent. Okay. So if you have three homes that expire, one of them chooses to relist with a new agent. The other 2 remain with the same agent. Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
I want to know that. I want to understand
if you break that down into cohorts of expireds versus canceled with the withdrawns, the amount that relists with a new agent with expireds is much, much higher.
Gotcha.
More like 50% of those that are going to relist
that's
are
good.
going to relist.
That's interesting information.
With expireds, because you think about all the reasons somebody might withdraw for a for a short time and then go back.
Happened, whatever.
So if you just look at expireds, it's more like 50% go with the new agent.
Gotcha. So in this, most of those relisted homes in that data that we went over, Curtis, sold, right? So if you relisted the home, you're more likely to end up going through a transaction.
Right.
That's not rocket science for anybody listening, right? But here's where it gets interesting. There is a better probability of selling when you relist with a new agent. It's right there.
Yeah.
Right. So you have I think the numbers, the way that's worked out is you have a 40% chance higher of selling your home when it's relisted with a new home. Fair?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I'm sitting down talking to somebody that I want to approach as an expired, I'm talking about this all day long.
Right.
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 If I have a listing that's going to expire, I want to prevent that from happening. Right. I want to talk to them in that, what we just talked about, that real conversation about why the home didn't sell, whether it's price, whether it's access, whatever it is. I want to be able to have that.
Yeah.
right? And I think most times in life, in a transaction like this, most of us appreciate somebody shooting us straight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
May have a different view, may have a different opinion, all those kinds of things, but we appreciate folks shooting us straight. Now I'm going to give a QR code here in just a second where everybody can get these slides, get the e-guide,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. And I know there's also a link if folks want to take advantage of everything REDX is doing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But if you want to shoot this QR code, and Curtis, I'm going to give you all these slides. So
Give
anyway
it to everybody.
folks need it, they can grab it.
Great.
Because I'm gonna go through a couple other slides here and show you a couple of things, but I want everybody to have this, use it however you see fit in going after an expired, working with expireds on all these KCM slides. Certainly if you're not a KCM member, we'd love to have you, but this is more about, I want everybody on the call to have all of this so that you're equipped come January. So most sellers that relisted did so at a lower price. Okay.
Yes.
I can't, you're going to have to be my eyes on some of this, Curtis. 62%, I believe, relisted at a lower price, 17% at a higher price.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Right. And in the balance, about 20% kept the price the same.
That's right.
Right. So again, if I understand this, then I can guide people forward on helping them make a decision. Oh, by the way, when they sold, the overwhelming majority sold at a lower price, 80%. Then there's a significant number that sold at a higher price, which is interesting.
Yes.
And the smallest share of the pie kept the price the same.
Yep.
So what do you want to do? You want to pay attention to price. Last thing statistically you want to do, tell me if this is right, is keep the price the same.
Yeah. Are you going to talk about days on market with those?
No, go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah.
So we let me see if I can pull up the chart. The chart, if you do that QR code, is in some of the documentation that we have.
Okay.
But average days to sell based on the pricing strategy, when you relisted with a new agent, if you kept the price the same, you relisted with a new agent, but you kept the price the same, your average days on market from when it got relisted to sold was 44 days. But
that's huge.
If you relisted with a higher price, the average days on market was 15 days.
Wow.
And the average days on market, if you lowered the price, was 19 days.
Wow.
So further evidence that you do not want to go with the same price.
Yeah,
If you're
right.
Because
whatever you do,
because those numbers were the same with the same agent, if you relist with the same agent, but they were all much higher.
Yeah.
So the average days on market with the same agent and the same price was 53 days.
Yeah.
The average days on market before it sold at a higher price was 36. Average days on market, if they lowered the price, was 40. So what's interesting about that is two things. If you stayed with we already showed you evidence that you shouldn't stay with the same agent.
Right.
And then that is further validated by the amount of time it took that same agent to get the property sold.
Yeah.
And when
you think about that, that makes sense.
Yeah, the marketing doesn't change
Right.
most of the time for a new agent. The marketing doesn't change. The property description doesn't change. There's not new photography. There's not a new group of buyers in the pool from the brokerage or from that agent. So yeah, it's a longer days on market before that sells.
Yeah, I think this point of being able to sit down with somebody and say, okay, why didn't the house sell? Right. And having sort of a heart, remember I said KCM was, to help families that were thinking about buying or selling, do that and do it confidently. Well, if I can sit down with somebody and I can go, hey, here's what I see, and I want to give you all of this.
Yeah.
Not just pound the phone and you want to list with me, right? I want to serve you with all of this. I think it's a far better strategy in being able to connect with folks. You can pull the slides down.
Well, I think the other thing that people should understand about this are people who have a property that's expiring, which,
no doubt.
Let's check our ego at the door for a second. If your property's expiring and it may not be your fault, it may not even be the homeowner's fault.
Sure.
It just may be conditions of the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
But if your property's expiring, if you truly understood some of these numbers and put some math to it, you might be better off going to your client and saying, we did our best. I'm going to introduce you to a guy who specializes, or a gal, an agent in my office that specializes in a second time to list, but
Yeah.
first to get it sold,
That's interesting.
and take a referral fee.
Yeah.
Then try to list it and sell it on your own and leave it on the market for an extra amount of time. If you're thinking what's best for your client and best for your commission, it may not be to take that listing again. It may be to refer them out before one of my customers gets in touch with that expired and gets that listing.
Right. That's a very interesting
Yep.
strategy. So let's talk for just a minute. You gave me this. I think I don't know what time again. I don't have my watch on, but
About 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. We're doing good on time. Kind of wrap up here. I don't know if there are questions that people have. We talked about the emotion
Yep.
that people feel.
Yep.
I know people want to hear about TCPA.
Yep.
So tell folks that what you shared with me about the emotion
In the
folks
chat,
feel.
what are the emotions that most people said? I mean, based on the yesterday's conversation about this.
Yeah.
Okay. They got it in there. So frustration is the go-to answer.
Yeah.
And that's probably because that's the most visible,
And it's
loudest
fair, right?
emotion,
It's
right?
in there somewhere.
But it's usually secondary. Embarrassment is one of the highest emotions. And the reason that is they've said their goodbyes. They've told all their people. If they have kids, the kids are telling all their friends, we're moving. And then the sign coming out. And they're the ones that have to save face to their community.
Hey, you told everybody you're going to sell.
But, and the negative part of that, this is why a lot of agents get blamed, right? Because they turn that embarrassment and they want to have a reason, and now they'll blame the agent that they're the ones that did a bad job. They're the ones that couldn't get it done. But understanding the emotion means that we can help them move forward,
Completely.
to the next phase.
This is where I think having the data, which we covered over the last 50 minutes, understanding where this person's at, and then being able to say, okay, can I meet them where they're at and try to help them? Right? If everybody on this call were to take that approach, whether it's an existing listing that's going to expire, it's an expired you're going to go after, to be able to say, hey, I understand the range of emotions in this. I want to do an honest assessment of why I didn't believe the home didn't sell, and certainly present my case for why I believe I can get the home sold. Then we can help people through this. Right. And I think to the degree, the amazing thing about our business is the more people, the more families that we help, the better business we grow. Right. And that is certainly true. But I was blown away when you told me that, because the natural answer is frustration, right? Not only from the seller, the agent, we're all frustrated too, right? You know what I mean? That it didn't happen. But talk just a minute about TCPA.
Yep.
And what folks, it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah, all of that's a hot topic. And it plays into kind of, if I take 5 minutes here, about hopefully people get the opportunity.
Yeah.
Hopefully they understand that as we project, there's $415 million in listing side commissions. And I'm using 3%. We don't need to go into whether you can or cannot, let's not fix that price there. But,
sure,
$415 million in commission that's available. That's real numbers in the first week of January. Now those commissions are spread out, on average over Q1.
But they're at play.
They're at play. You got to be in there, going after it. So the question is, well, I get that, but how do I go after that? Which also plays into the TCPA conversation. And if you understand the opportunity, you have to, for 30, 40, 50 years, when people have talked about working expired listings, they associate that with a phone call and prospecting and prospecting over the phone. And that is still a valid way to do business. And TCPA is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which was designed to stop spam calls and robocalls. And a robocall was these sequential and predictive dialers that would call 001, 002, and just make up phone numbers and blast everybody, and goes to a call center, and they put laws in place that said, hey, we don't want to do that anymore. Now the FCC is expanding some of that that harassment type thing to every business, and our business is affected. And the question is, okay, well, does that mean calling is illegal? No. Does it mean using technology to call is illegal? No. It means there is other constraints around there. All of the new TCPA regulations coming in 2025 doesn't change anything about REDX and how we've been coaching and teaching our customers how to do business. Because if there's any constraints or regulations, those were already in place. Those are
Gotcha.
already in place.
Right.
The new regulations really have to do with lead gen companies that are generating the opt-in for a customer. So no longer can a company generate a lead and sell it to 30 agents.
Gotcha.
You know, and that, so we're going to see a lot of portals changing their business. We've already seen that. Zillow is really pushing Zillow Flex because they no longer in 2025 will be able to do what they used to do, which is generate a lead and sell it to multiple agents, because you need one-to-one consent. The other thing that changes do is they further defined a text message, which they've already been treating as a phone call. So it's all of the same regulations and same things. They've further defined that with other opt-out, which doesn't really pertain to a lot of our customers because we don't recommend that as a practice anyway. But there's, you know, the biggest one is the do not call registry. Well, there's 250 million phone numbers on the do not call registry, and there's 629 million phone numbers in REDX database.
Gotcha.
So there is people to call. I tell people this, there is people to still call. And I say marketers ruin everything. Seth Godin said that at one point, you know. And so is it as easy as it was 10 years ago? No, because
Sure.
10 years ago, you know, there wasn't all of this TCPA lawsuits going on, and people would pick up the phone and they dial 100 numbers and they'd have 25 conversations. That's amazing. And so maybe now you pick up the phone and you dial the numbers you're allowed to call and you have 7 conversations.
Right.
You know, so it's harder. When Facebook first came out, we were able to take a single person and target that person with an app.
Right.
It was awesome. We were contemplating doing a product where you would take someone's the picture of their house that expired and say your house came off the market.
Yeah. Right.
In a Facebook ad.
Right.
Well, and that was cool until Facebook says, no, we're not going to allow you to do that.
Right.
Does that mean we don't do Facebook anymore? No.
Right.
So there's still compliant ways that you can use a telephone, that you can use technology with the telephone to go after that. But let's just talk for a second that you talk to your broker, or you say, I just don't want to slip up. I don't want to use the phone at all. We showed you the opportunity. The question is, well, what do I do now? And we've been hedging, you know, against the TCPA for a long time, saying, yeah, things are changing, along with societal behavior of whether I want to answer the phone or not. Right. So you can take these expired listings and you can target them on social media with our platform. And going back to embarrassment, imagine a video that you say, hey, you know, it could be frustrating, even embarrassing when your home comes off the market after you've been mentally moving for the last 6 months. Somebody who's in that situation that's scrolling through their feed and sees those captions or hears that is going to stop and listen.
Sure.
Right. And your ability to do that through our platform exists, right? Postcards are coming back. They're saying postcards gets higher exposure rates than text messages right now. Right. Yeah. Now, even if that's, I'm grabbing it to put in the garbage, but they're still seeing it. And if it's compelling, if you tap into the emotions that they're feeling because of what's going on, you have a high chance of being able to, well, you could do that from our platform.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just about calling, and we tell people to be compliant and make sure that you're talking to your broker. But the real headline of everything we're talking about is there's this massive opportunity, $415 million in commission. And so find a way that you can go after and meet these people. We've done a study every year for a long time. We always ask the question, do you knock doors?
Yeah.
Agents who consistently make over $250,000 in GCI still knock doors. 61% of them still knock doors. And when we call and ask them why, when we do these, you know, interviews, they say, because our business is a face-to-face, belly-to-belly relationship business. It works, you know. So, you know, maybe there's 10 expires you really want to list. Well, maybe they've seen your face on a video and they've gotten your postcard. We'll go knock on the door because they're going to relist with somebody. Right. Even on the low end, a third of them are going to relist with the new agent.
Yeah.
And why not be you and go after that, which is what REDX does and helps people do.
It's amazing. I mean, all of this information, I just want to say thank you to your entire team, everybody that's had a part in this. So folks can go out and use it and help people.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So
So it's been great. We do have an offer, and we've been working with the KCM team. We really believe that every agent should have a subscription to Keeping Current Matters. We just believe that. And so we've worked out with your team. I think that everybody who buys REDX, we've worked it out where they're going to get a 30-day trial to the premium.
Yeah.
And so we also have a very special offer for everybody that's on for REDX too. We have a big sale coming up, but we want you to have first access. And it's everything we've got, which normally retails for about $650, all the way down to $299.
Wow.
So they can get access to that. We'll put the link in the chat. We also have that QR code. We should probably pull up
I can
again.
bump it back.
And
that all the slides, and I think there are links to that on there. And listen, my advice right now is to do it, because and here's why. Let me say this, not just to, hey, I'm here with Curtis and love all that, and I do, but here's what I believe about 2025. I believe we will see the things come to fruition that we talked about in the forecast, which is the moral of that story is a little bit better market, right? Not blowing the doors off, but not taking a step back. That's what I believe 2025 will bring. Now, here's what I also believe. How you start 2025 will then determine your trajectory going into the spring market.
Yep.
You know, when I was in college, I worked for a leadership author named John Maxwell. John wrote a book called 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. If you ever read it. One of the laws is the law of the big Mo, and it was the law of momentum. And what he said is momentum is the leader's friend, right? If you're in business right now and you're kind of going, okay, what's going to be that momentum? This is the catalyst that can be the momentum to then springboard into April, May, June, get this year kicked off. And so listen, my advice for anybody watching, anybody thinking about it, is to do it and use this to kick off the year in 2025.
I agree. We're about at our time, so I want to do this. I want to thank everybody. We'll hang out as long as we have questions. But
I don't know if there are any more questions.
So if there's more questions, send those through. But David, thank you for coming out here. Thank you for all of the research and taking the amazing data that I think we uncovered and turning it into usable slides, which if people haven't caught on yet, is what Keeping Current Matters does. They're going to continually give you the assets that you need to have these realistic, real conversations, authentic conversations, so people can then make a decision. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming out. Any closing thoughts for people?
Here's my one closing thought. Let's continue doing this.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Let's continue to do that. And so grateful to just get a chance to share a few minutes together and talk about all this.
Yeah, thank you so much. The teaser is we're already doing a massive study right now on for sale by owner data.
Okay,
and
good.
And so
Stay tuned.
Maybe that'll be next, right? So, okay. So if the link is there, the QR code is up, you can get that. And I think that you can get to the REDX offer through the QR page as well.
Sounds, I don't, sounds good. Let's hope so.
Okay.
You can't, maybe somebody in the chat right now can put it in
there.
Yeah,
let's put it in there. So, okay. Any questions?
We have any in there?
Let's see. Does REDX have expired ad templates in Ad Builder centered around this data? That's a great question. The answer is no, we don't have any of the templates built, but that's a great idea. So I would encourage my team to write that down and let's get on that, right? Because those ads would be there. But let me just speak to that a little bit. The ad images are never going to be as good as video on social media platforms.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to really connect with someone, you want the chance for them to see you, to hear you, and to read about what you're saying. And because people are going to consume in different ways, especially at different times. Think about when you're, laying in bed scrolling versus whatever, when you're driving, which you shouldn't do, which is crazy. But you just consume in different ways, but you want them a chance to hear, see, and read about what you're doing. Yeah. And you want then the graphs and the charts and these to support and create validity to the things that you're saying to tell that story. I'm just talking about social media ads. It may be different when you're sitting down in a listing presentation. So yes, we will go talk to our team about some templates, but you grabbing this and talking about those, even if you don't know how to edit video and you just show them your computer screen, check this out, and
Yeah.
is a better social media ad than the templates that we'll put together for you.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about with a lot of KCM members that are using data, just to market and get things, is a consistent message across channels.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to be on YouTube, I want to be on LinkedIn, I want to be on Instagram, Facebook, whatever I'm on, and certainly Facebook is a higher monetization platform. And, so, but I want to be consistent across those platforms. One thing that you said though, is I think creating content that impacts the person that has that feeling of their expired listing right now.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it's just somebody going live with their phone, like you held it up saying, hey, guess what? I'm seeing a lot right now, a lot of homes coming off the market. And there are a number of different reasons for that. You know what I mean? Just speaking to that, where people, sort of can resonate and go, well, that happened to me.
Yep.
Right. And I'm interested.
Yep.
Now, or even subjects that we were talking about. Donald Miller before, who wrote Story Brand. It's a phenomenal book if you haven't read it, but he comes up with a lot of topics that I'm like, I wasn't interested in that now, but now I am.
Yeah.
Right. It just sort of sparks that idea in your head. So
with storyteller, right?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Yep. So I think if people are still on and listening, if they just want to say in the chat, I don't know, say the word AI prompt. We have some really good AI prompts that will help you take the emotion of a certain of the ad that you're creating and then turn that into a really good ad to try to resonate with what they're doing.
That's huge.
So,
yeah.
So we could give that out to people. We'll just keep giving stuff out as long as people are asking questions.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. What the number one emotion sellers feel when listing expired? Well, when it expires, embarrassment. If you missed that, we talked about that a little bit. Embarrassment. How much is KCM?
Depending on, you have to go in the tiers and look at which one's right for you, but we range anywhere from $39 to $99 a month. So
it is a no-brainer.
Most people, I tell people all the time, if you find somebody else out there that'll do all this work cheaper, let us know, because we may go and subscribe to their service. But our goal is to give you everything you need to be the expert this way. And I think even just spending an hour or two a month on it, listening and kind of gathering information. There are three things you have to do with information. One, you have to have a system to gather your education and data, right? And you don't have to become a KCM member, but we do that, right? Then you want to share it, what we just talked about, right? If I know this about expireds, then I want to share it. Then the third leg of the stool is I want to engage on it. I want to engage people to say, okay, this is what happened in your situation, or have you been thinking about selling, or what does this mean for, if you're a buyer and this is happening, what does that mean for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, you have a daily blog. You've done daily for 15, 16 years daily. Which is free. And I would say what has happened to a lot of people that I know, they would start reading the blog and they do start engaging and they realize, oh, I need the rest of the data. I need a little more data.
You can then put your brand on it.
Yeah.
And it's everything.
Yeah.
And there's people that take KCM information and create their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many things that happen. I'm like, wow, that was really cool what somebody did with it. So
you're very soft pitcher here. I mean, we're trying to lob a softball here. So I'll do it for you. Go sign up for KCM at any tier. Just get it, and you'll see how much it will help you become the expert. And we love it because the more you understand about the market, working with expireds, working with for sale by owners, pre-foreclosures, these are all people that have they're high intent.
Yeah.
They're going to list at a high percentage, but they also want certainty, confidence, and expertise in the agent that they now choose because of the situation that they're in.
Sure. You just said something that is really, really important. It's working with somebody that's high intent. When you have somebody that's high intent, you want to make sure that you have the right words, right? Because this is This is not just talking to somebody at Starbucks about, did you think about selling your house?
Yep.
Or you know anybody thinking
Yep.
about selling? This is somebody that is in the process. So if I'm educated, if I have the right words, oh, by the way, you're like, I don't want to be scripted. Well, scripted, the simple meaning of scripting is you know what you're going to say before you say it.
Yeah.
Right. So if I do that, then I'm more confident and I'm like, all right, Curtis, here's what we're going to do in your situation. Right. And guide you forward. I think that's huge.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you have video training for ad builder? Yes. In fact, part of the deal that we're doing is a 3-day boot camp. Everybody comes in, it's 3 hours for 3 days virtually. We do all of the text training, all of the prospecting training, all of the social media training to teach everybody what to do. That's part of the deal that you're getting. In fact, maybe I'll put you on the spot and say we should also do a session where we can teach them how to take the KCM information and
All
apply
day
it in
long.
the-
Yeah, we'll do it.
So, so yeah, we'll do that. That'll be really awesome. So, um, a lot of thank yous and a lot of accolades, which we very much appreciate. We do that for you. We believe in this business. We want you to succeed as real estate agents. We believe that that's good for your clients. It's good for our economy. It's good for the world.
Yeah.
And so we want you to succeed. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everybody for tuning in and hanging with us. And look in your email inbox from both keepingcurrentmatters.com and redx.com as we fulfill all of our promises to get you everything that we've said that we'd get you. And for that,
It's a wrap.
we're signing off.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Great to be on.